Hello, everyone. This is John from RPGs and More. And in this episode, I wanted to discuss a little bit about a topic that I had been thinking about earlier today when I was sitting down and giving my cat his a bit of a brushing. And I started saying to myself, why is it that I am not interested at all in buying the fifth edition or the 5.5 edition of D&D, because I have played pretty much every edition of D&D aside from fourth, and I've enjoyed all of them to some extent, some more than others. Um, and so I was confused because I've been thinking about it a bit because when 5.5 came out, let's readjust here to make it more comfortable. There. When 5.5 came out, I wanted to like it. I wanted to think that it was a really cool thing, but unfortunately, there's a few things that kind of came together. The story, not just the game itself, but the story around the game, kind of had an effect on me. And it's gonna sound a little weird, and I don't mean to be like a conspiracy theorist kind of person. That's not what this is about at all. But I just had a realization that certain practical concepts were coming to war with each other in such a way that I couldn't get excited for 5.5. And I may change my mind on this in the future, but right now I'm relatively solid. I think that I don't want to play it partially because it is very much a 5.5. It's 5th edition with a little bit extra thrown on top. I was here for the switch from 3.0 to 3.5. I've played 2.5 and read 2.0, so I'm not unfamiliar with how this process can work. But what I see is that it really kind of doubles down on the things that made me, in the end, not enjoy 5th edition as much. That is not to say that 5th edition is a bad system. Obviously, it's not. It's insanely popular. There's live plays and actual plays all over the place where you can watch people play it well, you can watch people play it badly, you can watch people play it solo, you can watch people play it with their friends, you can watch people play it with strangers on the internet, you can go down to your store and join in the Adventurers League if you happen to have one nearby you that it participates in that. It's everywhere, and that's a good thing. So I'm not, please understand that this is not an anti D&D rant in and of itself. Hopefully it's not a rant at all. Hopefully this is actually going to make some sense. So, why do I not talk about D&D as much on this channel? Why is it not like the game that I espouse a lot about? Partially because there's a lot of content about 5th edition out there. And I feel like most of what I experience and what I know is kind of been talked about ad nauseum by people that have played the game more than I have. And they often say things in far more expressive and digestible words than I tend to use because I have my own speech patterns. Excuse me. And as much as I enjoy talking in front of a camera, and to a certain extent, I am mostly an introvert, but I do enjoy theater and performing in the theater when I get the chance, which, I used to do a lot. So, all right, getting off topic. Let's go back to the main focus. Is 5th edition D&D 5.5, why am I not diving in? That is because I've grown to really appreciate and really love the sort of garage kind of, I want to call it the garage band nature of of a lot of the OSR, where it's a one or a couple of creators that kind of band together or work independently in order to create something. And there's a lot of different systems out there. There's a lot of different modules out there. Some are great. I have with these amazing production values that make you go, oh, and some of them are just kind of like basic and simple and but or weird and make you go, huh? And part of me really loves that because it reminds me of the revolutionary times at the beginning of third edition or 3.0, when that first came out and the open gaming license was a new thing. And it was like a gold rush of opportunity of all these publishers coming out with different things, different ways to do things, and just throwing stuff at the wall to see what fits and what sticks. And you're just going, yes. So there was so much. And that's kind of what the OSR is to me, is there's all this stuff going on and there's all these options and opportunities and everyone's got an idea. Sometimes there's almost too much, but that's okay. Like in a way, it's like it gives us the opportunity to kind of vote with our wallets and our time on the things that we enjoy, the things that excite us, the things that make us fascinated about the hobby, and the things that we have time for, because most of us have day jobs and families and responsibilities, and we don't have hours upon hours upon hours to spend doing these things. So that's one of the reasons why I really dig the OSR as a concept. The old school, I call it the old school revolution, or this. I also like the old school Renaissance. Old school Renaissance to me feels better because it reminds me of the whole idea of the Renaissance man, the man that tries to do everything and or at least be a student of all aspects of life, even if they're not the master at any of it. They try to learn it all anyway. Um, and I like that idea of it. So, but with fifth edition, that hasn't been as strong. And part of that is because, I mean, there's been a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of people putting out a lot of material for fifth edition over the years. And I've read, an amount of it. Um, and I'm sure that with the license now being under Creative Commons and other things involved with all of that, thank you, OGL Scandal. Um, we will continue to see third-party works for mainline D&D for years to come. I certainly hope that remains true. But what I have seen is increasingly what I call the corporatization of Dungeons and Dragons. And when I say that, what I'm referring to specifically is the actions of Wizards of the Coast, mostly, I'm sure, at the instigations and reinforcement by Hasbro, that have led D&D into directions that I don't like as an individual. The main one right now being how much they are pushing you to use D&D Beyond, and turning that from a simple subscription to be able to use your tools to now you almost, in order to play the game and have all the latest stuff, you pretty much have to use it. It's not an option anymore. It is expected. And people look at you funny when you don't say, oh yeah, sure, I have a D&D Beyond account. Let me go ahead and just, throw that on there. And to me, while online play is cool, it's a neat thing that is involved in our hobby, in all parts of our hobby right now. It's kind of necessary in a lot of cases because we live in a society where people are so far apart, that you often will see friends that live, in different states, in different sides of the country entirely, sometimes even in different countries, because of how life has gone for them, and they still want to play together. And online play allows that to happen. And that's phenomenal. It's wonderful. I enjoy that. What I don't like, though, is that online play, especially when everyone is online, I have found as a player and as a DM, it's harder for me to pay attention to everything. It's harder for me to, I think the term that people use a lot right now is lock in on the game because I'm on my computer and I've got all the other things on my computer that I need to worry about. I get notifications for different stuff going on. I'm like, oh, I can just, and it's really easy to say, it'll just take a second. I'm just going to check for a second to see what's going on with this Discord update or what's going on with that update from that app or whatever. And it's the same thing that we deal with our phones when we're playing in person. And I have found that that adds to the other thing that I don't like about online play, which is since it's a video call usually or an audio call, it's really hard to two things. It's really hard to have a side conversation with one of the other players and interact with them when you're playing online because everyone's using the same call. And so if you're having a side conversation, that means the DM can't be running the game at the same time. So it's no longer a side conversation. That's the conversation. And so it makes, in some ways, it makes role playing harder. Because sometimes I just want to pass a note or pass some words. But if I do that, then now I'm engaging with a computer. I'm typing things out, which means I'm not listening. And then I'm sending it to that player, and now we're hearing notification sounds throughout the whole thing, so everybody knows that I passed a note. And it's all these things going on, and it kind of combines together to create this whole atmosphere where, also, if the DM is talking, no one can talk, or if someone else, accidentally, sneezes or makes loud noises, interrupts the DM because the microphone and cameras instantly go to whoever made the most noise, and that kind of interrupts the flow of things. Yeah, there's probably ways to solve most of this, but it's kind of, unless everyone in your group has the same level of technology skills, you're at the mercy of whoever has the least when it comes to this stuff. And there's a lot of other things that are also involved with that, because in order to make that work, you've got to make sure you have a nice pair of headphones that are comfortable to wear for hours on end. You've got to have a nice microphone that you can speak into easily. You've got to have the software that will run all of that. And hopefully your computer is strong enough to be able to maintain Discord video call and or Roll20 at the same time, or whatever service that you use. And in my experience, especially if you're playing with people who have different levels of technology in their lives, I usually would lose sometimes even the first hour of every game session as we tried to perform tech support just to get everyone signed in and synced up with each other on all the apps so that it would work. And I lost patience with that. I've lost patience with that as a person. And therefore, I just don't want to do online games anymore. Not if I have a choice. I mean, if there are times when I still have, and I'm not entirely against it, but it has to be something where it's a single app game, where we're just running the game using Discord and not another app. We're just running the game using Roll20 and nothing else, or whatever it is, just one app only, because trying to coordinate 2 or more apps with all these people is just nuts. And then you've got that one person that all they have is a tablet from 10 years ago, and they're trying to log into the game, and you don't want to kick them out because they're a friend, but at the same time, they're one of the main reasons why you're delayed so often and why you suddenly have to take breaks because their battery died and they got to go plug it in and da-da-da-da-da-da, And it's not just that person's, I'm not blaming just that person, like, because that's not fair to them even. because anyone can have tech problems. And that's the thing with online play, is that you end up spending so much time dealing with tech or worrying about your tech that as a game master, I'm not running the game, I'm coordinating the tech. And I'm not a tech guy. So in the few times that I had these games running, I would often have to lean on one of the players who was a tech guy, or tech person, and they could handle that. They knew what to do, which was great. And all props to them. Serious. Thank you. Um, but when it comes to, like, when I think about trying to start one up now, and sometimes I wonder, like, it'd be so easy to start up a game with my friends from college. That would be so much fun. I'd love to play with them some more. And then I'm like, but the tech issues. Well, maybe we could just do it on voice call. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It wouldn't be the same, but we could. And maybe I will. Again, this is not like a statement of factual will never happen again. No, it's just I don't like it. It's not fun, at least in and of itself. The whole concept isn't fun. And because D&D Beyond is being pushed so much, they're really pushing you towards that online play. Even when you're playing in person, you're still all having a computer or a tablet out in order to manage your character sheet. And the thing that bugs me about that, the other thing that bugs me about that is that when you have the tablet running your character sheet, you're no longer thinking about the math of how your character works. And sometimes this is great because, I got to admit, sometimes I just can't keep up with the math mid-game. I get it. I totally respect that. That's one of the reasons why when I would play games in 3rd edition and 3.5 and in Pathfinder, I'd have to make my own character sheets. I couldn't use the official ones because I would make my own character sheets where I would have the equations for all the different actions listed out. So I had like every permutation of how I might wield my weapon as a fighter written out as a different line of an equation in order to be able to just say, yes, that's what I need. This is what I'm going to roll. I try to do all that work ahead of time, which just doesn't fit into your standard character sheet. But when you're using an online character sheet, you can't do that. You have to use whatever the system is, which means that you have to trust the machine to do the math right, which is fine. Like most of the time, machines are great. I still shudder at the idea of people making characters for D&D using ChatGPT because, oh boy, does it lie. But anyway, so those are things that kind of get under my skin a little bit. The other thing is when D&D is being pushed as a subscription service and as a digital only service as opposed to a product, that kind of gets into my nerves a little bit because it starts saying that every player needs to buy everything as well as the DM needs to buy everything, which is exactly what Wizards of the Coast wants because they want your money. And they've made it perfectly clear that is their goal. They want everyone to be buying into the D&D lifestyle. And that seems almost more important from my perspective as a consumer looking in. I feel like that is more important to them than making a good game. And part of that also kind of dovetails into we have a shortage of people willing to run games in 5th edition and 5.5. I used to run games in 5th edition, and I won't do it anymore. And the reason why is because there is too much going on mathematically under the hood, and there are too many exploits that players can use in order to get one up on the DM. I have been in that scenario too many times where someone takes it upon themselves to turn the game into an adversarial against the DM kind of game. People talk about adversarial DMs saying that, oh, the DM is just out to get me. But I've also encountered more than a few adversarial players where the player takes it upon themselves to break the game because they can, because to them that's fun. And they, well, because they enjoy that part of the game, they feel entitled to continue to do so. And if the GM doesn't like it, well, then too bad, so sad, because they're following the rules. You know, if that's that's your classic rules lawyer. I've dealt with rules lawyers for decades. It doesn't really bother me that they exist. I mean, that's fine. If that's what makes you happy, then be happy. Play, that's fine. Just don't expect me to run a game for you because it's not fun for me. And I think from my perspective, that might have something to do with why there's so few DMs available in 5th edition and 5.5 right now compared to the number of players, is because the DMs, or the people that might be DMs, see all of that and say, I don't want to deal with it. I'd much rather sit back and just play, which is how I feel. I'll play 5th edition. Heck, if I get the opportunity, I might even play 5.5 at some point. I'm not going to run it. And this kind of, I kind of came to a lot of this realization unexpectedly by playing Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic game. I'm sure that there's people that have plenty of things in it that they don't like, especially when you get the romance system involved. And I'm not here to defend or promote any of that. The game itself is a good game because it is a good representation of 5th edition on the tabletop. Yes, Larian made some changes to how the system works, but the 90% of the system, as far as I can tell, is almost identical to how I would run it at the table. Okay. But here's the thing, that kind of cemented to me the idea that I just wanted to be a player, because it became so easy to be a player. And as a player, I could start pulling off all these exploits. And I kind of see it in the video game community with people talking about all the ways that they exploit the system in Baldur's Gate 3. And kudos to Larian for thinking of all that stuff and actually having the game react to you using some of these exploits in such a way that you are sitting here going, that you actually get an in-game response to what you're doing, even with the characters saying this, isn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, where the narrator is saying something. That's great. I love it. Excuse me. So, but playing it with my friends and my family actually was so much of a fun experience that I said, you know what? I'm good. That's 5th edition to me. 5th edition is great when the computer is running the numbers and I don't have to. Wonderful, fantastic, no notes. And I just can't help the feeling that 5.5 is pretty much the same in that respect. It's going to be great as long as D&D Beyond is running all the numbers for you. Then you don't have to engage with the system itself. You just select your choices from a drop-down menu and you're fine. And that, I'm not opposed to that. Obviously, because I like Baldur's Gate 3. It does the same thing. But it's just not where I want to go with my in-person games. When I play in person, I don't want tablets and phones at the table. I want to see notepads, pencils. I want people to be engaged with the scene. I want to be able to feed off of their energy as the game master because we're in the same room with each other, so we can all get excited about a moment together, so that when I'm creating a tense moment of RP, someone else doesn't just like snicker in the middle of it and say, I just saw this thing on my phone, it's so funny. um no, like, we need to be in the scene together, and that's so much easier to manage when you are playing in person than when you're playing online. And that's why I like games that tend to reinforce and support the idea of pencil and paper and as few electronics at the table as possible, aside from maybe some, some music. If the DM wants to use their phone to play some music in the background and stuff like that, then that's like, yeah, sure, as long as it's not doing anything else, go for it. So that's another reason why I'm not jumping in on the 5.5 bandwagon. Um, the other reason is that I'm just tired, I guess. I'm tired of edition creep of all the games that I'm in. D&D is on the 5.5 edition. Uh, Games Workshop is putting Warhammer on its 11th edition, and I started in 5th. And there's a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're part of that. And it just, like, I know that according to law, you have to create new versions of a thing in order to maintain your copyright, in order to maintain your intellectual property. There are legal reasons why people make these changes and why they advance things to new editions. The problem that I'm seeing is that very few of those reasons have anything to do with making the game truly better. A lot of times, at least in Games Workshop land, recently it's felt like it's more just making changes so that we can have a new product to sell and to get your money. And that's kind of how 5.5 feels to me right now. Yes, 5th edition was out for about, 2014, so the 10 years. That's actually a pretty good run. I'm not upset about that. I just wish that if they're coming out with a new edition, they would have just made it 6th edition and actually tried something truly different. But there's no way where they would really want to do that, because, if you have something that's selling well, why would you change it that much? Well, there is some truth to be said for that. And so they came out with 5.5. And this whole thing is that, like, oh, you don't need to use the new edition. You can use your old edition stuff alongside the new edition stuff, and it'll be fine. And that's not really true. They tell you that because they told us the same thing when they came out with 3.5. You don't need to upgrade your books if you already have them. You can the two can work together. It's cross compatible. Yada yada yada. It was bold face corporate lies. They just were trying to placate the people that already own the books so that they'll be happy long enough to buy the new edition and then get invested in it and realize, oh, I like this better or not. And then just buy the rest, and then rebuy the rest of their stuff as they put out the new books, which are now being priced more as luxury commodities than they are being priced as books. And that's the other thing that kind of permeates a lot of the D&D space right now, which I'm not really a fan of, but I kind of get it. I kind of don't. So let me see if I can illustrate this a little bit here. And this is not just Wizards of the Coast, by the way. This is a lot of people are doing this. So let's grab Monte Cook. All right. The Numenera Guidebook. Big book, beautiful book, full color art everywhere. Looks amazing. All right. US retail value at $49.99. Okay, that's $50. That's a $50 book. That's, to put that into a perspective, that's most of what I pay for a week's worth of groceries. That's more than I pay for a week's worth of public transportation. Almost double. Actually, probably more than double what I pay for that. It's a good chunk of my electricity bill. It's a good chunk of, it's just more than I pay for a month's worth of cat food. Maybe I need to buy more expensive cat food. I don't know. But, and I'm not necessarily trying to take a dig at Monte Cook, because frankly, $49.99 now for big, full color art game books, that's kind of cheap. Most of these books are starting at $60 and going higher. And I just feel like I can't justify as much as I used to being able to spend that kind of money on a book unless I'm going to use it a lot. And even if I'm going to use it a lot, why am I spending that much money on it? And that's kind of where I'm at, because I look at the price, how much it would cost for me to buy into 5.5. Just the 3 core books, not including anything else. And the cost is high. And yeah, if I buy them, then I can use it for a long time. Those books might even last me, 10 years without breaking, depending on how rough I am with them. And to a certain extent, that kind of can justify a higher price. But here's something else, though. We look at OSR stuff. Actually, no, let's not go OSR, because everyone, and I talk about OSR a lot. Let's grab something a little bit different. This is the first of 3 rulebooks for the Japanese game Sword World. Sword World 2.5 is the current edition of the Sword World game. That's 2.5 editions since the 80s. The game is very stable. All right? But what you have here is a very dense book. There's almost no art in here at all. I don't read Japanese. I bought this as a support for the company because I'm working on getting my hands on the English translations of all of this, and there are some that are unofficial fan translations, and so I'm using some of those to familiarize myself with the book. So I'm supporting the company by buying the actual books as sort of a pseudo justification of using the fan translations. All right, but anyway, the point is that there's almost no art in these. It's just text, and yet these are really thick. Now, but they're also small form paperback books printed on standard paperback book paper, all black and white. And you know how expensive these are to buy? This one cost me a little bit more because it was being imported from Japan. But the reality is you can buy these at the same price that you buy a novel at your local bookstore, a paperback novel. And for some reason, we have ignored that as a possibility for how we purchase and how we print out our RPGs. Almost every RPG book that we have is printed out like a technical manual. And they're really, a lot of them are filled out and organized and formatted like technical manuals too. Thank you, Chris Gonerman, by the way. He's one who kind of was able to enlighten me as to why formatting for RPGs is the way it is. So total respect for him. A basic fantasy role-playing game is fantastic. I know I haven't talked about it too much on this channel, but it's great. I love it. Anyway, thank you. But it's interesting. It's interesting because one of the reasons why companies like to make these big books is because big books look great on the shelf of the store. You see that, you're like, oh, it must be impressive. You look at the art, you go, wow, look at this art. This art's amazing. I'm going to buy this book. They're right. It works. It's a marketing ploy. It works. Of course it does. They've been doing it for the past, 40 some years. But what it ends up doing is it keeps driving the price up because you need the heavy duty paper and you need the color printing and you need the semi-gloss finish on those pages to protect them against spills or scratches or whatever, or just the light of the sun. The price just keeps going up because you're looking at the price of materials, you're looking at the price of the binding process, you're looking at the price of the artists and the art, which is not insignificant, especially when you actually pay your artists, respect to those who do. And then you're looking at the amount of text that is needed, and you got to pay your writer as well. If your writer is yourself, then you got to pay yourself. Don't forget that. So I kind of get why we get these fancy big books. And I'm not opposed to paying for the fancy big books, obviously. let's be real here. But there does come a breaking point. And part of that is due to some stuff that's going on right now in the country that I'm in, which has caused what seems to be a financial, the next one of a series of financial crises, where people are just not making the kind of money that they used to make, even when they're making money, and therefore justifying spending your money on your hobbies as opposed to the necessities of life becomes harder and harder, assuming you even have money to spend on hobbies to begin with. So what we see is a shrinking number of people capable of paying for these books and an increasing price in these books, which means that when they do buy that book represents a larger outlay of their finances than would otherwise have been the case. And I'm not really a fan of treating my role-playing games as luxury items. I don't like seeing them that way, because I believe that the opportunity to play, to engage in play as an adult, is very important for our mental health, for our development as human beings, our ability to kind of reflect upon our lives and try to find a better way to be as a person is something that play can help make it happen. Because when we do it as play, and when we do it as a role-playing game, it's less threatening to us as an individual than, or to our own psyches, than if we try to engage it in another fashion. It makes it easier to approach, which means that when it's time to actually truly think about, am I the person that I want to be? Am I doing what I want to do in life? Is there something more that I want to be or that I want to do? If we can approach those questions through play, we can maybe find some answers before they get to the point where we are having a mental health crisis about the answers to those questions because we've already thought about it. We already have an answer. And so when the question comes up in a more real sense, we can say, well, when I play this game, I really like doing this and I feel good. And maybe this is, you know, maybe I need to be more heroic in my life. Maybe I need to step up to my challenges the way that my characters do in D&D. And then you can kind of experiment and say, well, what if I act in a certain way? And so you test that out and you play a character who behaves in a manner that is different than how you normally behave. And you take the time to really role play it. It gives you the opportunity to test how others react to that. Both through the DM and their NPCs' responses to your character's actions and words, as well as your fellow players and how they respond. And that can be, if you're in a good group, really enlightening. It can really help you get an idea of, yeah, I like who I am when I play a bard and I express myself more clearly than when I'm quiet and just keeping all my thoughts in my head. I like that better. So maybe I should try doing that in my life more. Yeah, things like that. So I know this is another tangent. I'm sorry. I'll bring it back to the point. The point is that when D&D as a game is luxury priced, it's a lot harder for individuals to engage with it unless they also have the money. And when money is the barrier, and it's the main barrier to play, I disagree with that. And that's one of the reasons why I like OSR stuff, because so much of the OSR material is available for cheap, especially if you can just, and if you're happy to just read it off of your tablet for a while, or if you have a printer at home like I do, I can print it out. I invested in a coil binding machine many years ago, or a few years ago now. And that has really been a game changer for me. That's not cheap. So, but the idea is that even you can do a lot with just a 3-hole punch and a folder. Let's see, do I have one of those things I made? Not easy to hand, but I do a lot of things where I'll take a PDF of an OSR product, I print it out, and you can also have it printed out at a local print shop if you are willing to pay a little bit of more money, or you can just order the book. If you have the ability to order a book like this from DriveThru or from, this is the one from Lulu. But again, usually not too much money. You just got to be patient. Or you can print it out yourself and 3-hole punch it and put it in a folder, and then you've got a product or a book that you can use as long as you want. Much more affordable. There's games on Amazon that sell for less than $5. The one that comes to mind right away is the White Box Fantasy Medieval game. That one's really great. Not my personal favorite, but I enjoy it and I have owned it. And it allows for people to get into the hobby for really cheap. But these are bridges into the hobby that are affordable. But when D&D is not that, and yet still the flagship for the hobby, I get a little disappointed. Yes, technically you can play D&D by only using, D&D Beyond and the free material that's out there. Yeah, but you have to know where it's at. You have to look for it. You have to find it. Like I know where I can get my hands on a free printout or PDF of the D&D basic rules from 5.0 because that's it is required to be out there. But it just like it's another barrier still, because you then it's the barrier of knowledge. It's the barrier of having to know exactly where that link is and find it. And yeah, that's part of the barrier that every game faces. But because D&D has such a huge market share, it's a little emphasized at that point. Okay, I'm meandering a little bit again. So, all right. Let's see if I can bring this back around to finish up the point, because we've been talking for a while. I would like to see a continuation of books for any game system being made in a easy to print, cheap to print, and easy to afford fashion. Print on demand is great. I love print on demand. But what I would love to see is a American-based company or printing house that does novels also start, let's start having some game books that are made in that style as well. I think that'd be really cool. I do support the idea of online play for its merits, but I don't like when online play becomes required in order to enjoy a game system. And I have certain issues with licensing and how it works out with in the wake of the Open Gaming License scandal. And all those things combine to me not really being down with 5.5 right now. Does it do things that I think are cool? Sure. As far as I've seen so far. I mean, other people are enjoying it, and I don't really want to tell them they're wrong, because I don't think they are. Everyone's subject to their own matter of taste as far as games go. And if you like 5th edition, then I am happy for you. I support you. Please enjoy it. But there are so many games out there. And there are so many opportunities for us to try different things. And I think that is what drives me in the hobby right now. It's not that I want to try everything. I don't want to try everything. There are some games that I just don't want to touch for various reasons. Fatal comes to mind. I have no interest in touching that one. If you know, you know. But I guess that kind of sums it up. There's other things I want to talk about. I do want to do another video tonight talking about Shadow Dark, because that is another topic that I find fascinating. But I'll get to that one in that video. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully this was interesting. I doubt it was revolutionary, but at least, I felt like it was something I needed to say, because this is a channel that I talk a lot about different games, and sometimes I wonder if, people wonder why or why not various stuff. Why or why not am I actually, running Dungeons and Dragons, even though it's clearly been on my shelf, and stuff like that. And it goes a little bit more beyond just, there's so many other channels that do that. I mean, it's true. I'm mocking myself at that moment because that's true, but that's not the only reason. So here's a little bit of what's going on right now. But again, thank you so much for your time and your attention. And thank you to everyone who is subscribed to this channel, because it has reached 600 subscribers as of today. And that is a number that is far larger than I ever thought this little hobby channel of mine would get to. So holy cow, give yourselves a round of applause. This is for you guys. Cheers. Here's to you. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and peace be with you. Bye-bye now.